what I learned from a spider. In my garage, I have a series of daddy long leg spiders. How could they be teachers? They build their webs in the ceiling corners of the sheetrock. They stand out noticeably better. And when I brush them down with my fluffy mop, they immediately cast a web and head for the floor. When they land on my speckled plastic floor covering, I cannot see them better as their delicate legs and tiny body are camouflaged. However, when they scamper away to better themselves, I can spot them better immediately. Then, guess what happens? Those spiders remind me of how much safer, better, and less aggravating life could be if I just stood still sometimes. Not always, but there are important times. I would not be so consumed by my environment, debilitated by my strivings with little or even dismal results. Here's an example. My parents were overly protective of me growing up. I'm in college, 19, 20 years of age, studying like a Trojan to graduate on time. They would not allow me to date, drive a car on my own. How can I manage my life if I always have to wait for my mother to drive me to work or school, especially with 5 other children she had to manage? I wanted my own transportation. One of my colleagues at work got a new motorcycle. He wanted to sell his old one for $200, and that sounded so interesting to me. Why don't I buy it and become independently mobile? He volunteered to come and teach me how to work it during the summer, on weekends, when the family was away camping. Then the day came when I had to reveal my new mobility solution to my family. My brothers and sisters would be so happy for me, but how am I going to tell my parents? I came up with a semi-brilliant idea. I would have Santa give it to my dad for Christmas. He won't have time to ride it, so I can take over. I stored the bike at my babysitting family's garage around the corner. Christmas Eve came. My neighbor helped me bring it into the living room next to the Christmas tree and the piano. It was so big sitting there, I had to cover it up with a big white sheet and a huge red bow. Gift card said, "To Daddy from Santa." The next morning, my sisters and brothers could not believe what Santa had brought under the big white sheet that was covering it and the giant red bow. Once my dad read his card and gave me permission, I took my siblings on a ride up and down our street for the rest of the day. All my sisters and brothers loved it. It was so much fun. However, As I began reflecting on this experience, I discovered that something was not quite right. First, the engine on the bike was not big enough for me to legally drive on the freeway to school and get to San Francisco. Second, I had to wear a helmet for protection. That did not work too well with my beehive hairstyle of the day. The helmet would completely ruin my coveted image. When it rains, and it always rains in San Francisco, how was I going to hold my umbrella? Well, the next day, my dad came up to me and told me what happened. Since he had the time and not had the time to ride a bicycle with all his busy work, he decided, since Santa had given him the bike, he would sell it to the other neighbor down the street for $100. Oh, that neighbor really needed a bike to ride around town with. He said that since I needed something safer to drive to San Francisco with, and something that did not require a helmet, he bought me a brand new used Chevy Nova. Wow. When I think of all I went through to train myself on a motorbike, the money I spent, the sneaking around, the hiding, and the stories I used, I would have saved a lot of time by standing still and claiming my truth. I could have trusted in the compassion and understanding of my father. Stillness and truth can speak for itself. That is what reminded me of the spider. Its frantic attempts to save and have peace were what led to its greater demise. If I had been successful at riding that bike on the freeway to San Francisco, who knows which graveyard I would have been buried in. Yes, even spiders can teach us in the process.